Hello everybody and welcome to another video from PH Studios. The group project is about to start. I am going to invite a few people that have shown me their work and I think they'll be a good person for the group project. And I'll invite a few of those and it's up to them if they want to participate in it or not, if they want to make the final decision. So anyway, what I want to do in this video is to kind of benefit them, because they will need to use Subversion to participate in this, but I also want to benefit everybody else. And I want to give you a nice guide on how to use Subversion, and I have a small video like that in the past. At the end of my videos, I talked about it for about 5 minutes or something like that. But I want to make a video just dedicated on how to use Subversion. Now, if you do not have your own server or something that you can put Subversion on yourself, you can get a website called Beanstalkapp. This is a very useful website. There's a free version where you get one user and one repository, or one project. I have about 11 projects in my current plan, so I have the second plan, I think it's Silver, and that costs me $25 a month to pay them to keep that up to date, and they do all these backups and stuff like that. So what Subversion does is it allows us to work collectively. And even if you're doing stuff on my own like I am, you're able to submit your changes and you're able to revert back to any of those changes. It's a good idea to start using a Subversion. Either you're using your own server or you're using a service like the Beanstalk provides. It's a good idea to start using that from the very beginning of your project to the very end of several releases. So in that case, if you make any mistakes at all, you can revert. If you make a mistake on one class, you can revert just that one class. So the way Subversion works is that you do all of your coding, or it'll work with anything. You can use After Effects, Photoshop, Word, any file. So you do your work, and then you need to commit your changes, and it submits it to this repository as a new version of that file that you worked on. Now you can go back to all previous versions of the file. You can go back to version 1 or version 100 or 1000 or whatever version is the last. And you can revert the entire project back to version 1, version 10, 100, 1000, whatever. So you can go back to all in between your first revision to your last revision. So you can see what your project was as it progresses, and you can go back to one of those. Like if you have a line of code that you really wanted to keep in there that you took out in revision 2, and now you're at revision 100, you can go back to revision 2 and look at your code. And you can actually copy the line of code you want and paste it in the revision 100, commit it, and it'll be 101. So this, if you're any sort of developer, this is what you need. You'll have a backup on your computer, and then I also have a backup of all my most important projects like the tower defense on another storage drive. And then I also have another one on an external hard drive, and then I also have it on here, and they do backups as well. So it's a good idea to where if your computer crashes, if for some reason there's a fire at my house, at least I can go to them and see if they have had any problems. Hopefully they had any backups that I can use. Chances are pretty unlikely that I will have a fire in the house and they will have a server error and lose all of their stuff at the same time. So they have a copy active that I can check out and check in and then they also perform a few backups as well. Okay, so I'm using Beanstalk for our group project that we'll be starting shortly. We're going to get together and decide what everybody wants to do first before we start. That's why I labeled it a generic group project. And I will provide this link. Right now, only I am the only person in the team. But as you accept my invite to Beanstalk and set up your account, your password and everything, you will be assigned to the team once you do that. And then once the group project has reached like a decent state, I'll open it up to the public to check out. And you won't be able to check in any changes, but you'll be able to check out. Okay, so this link is what you will use to check in and check out. You will set it up in your Subversion program, and I'll talk about that in a couple minutes. So, as you see here, it has a timeline, and that will indicate who did what changes, and you'll be able to see what changes were applied to the specific part of the repository. Like a file has been changed, it will tell me by user A, Y minutes ago, file X has been changed, and I can click file X, and it will show me actually if it's any sort of text file or any indication that you can read it in the browser. You know, I can't see the changes in a image, but like a text file or a .cs file for C# and all that kind of stuff, I can see what lines were deleted and added through the browser, as well as the Subversion Client. Okay, so let's talk about the client. So I have, on the Mac, I have versions. And versions, I'll skip this version, is a graphical user interface Subversion client for the Mac. And it is very good. I've had this since I first started using the Beanstalk. And I only use Subversion on the Mac when I am working on graphics or audio. Of course, I can't use Visual Studio directly in the Mac, so I go into Windows for that. And I will discuss a Windows client because that's what I use for my Visual Studio commits and updates. So versions and this will be kind of similar to what the other client in the Windows side will do. You'll provide the same information typically. So this will be the local name, whatever you want to name it, group, project, and then the location, which is the address that I mentioned here, your Subversion URL. So you can copy that, and I'll provide that in the development forums on my website. And then your username and password, and if you're in the team, so your username and your password. I'm in the team, so my username and password. Alright, and then click create, and this will create a bookmark of that project. And I'm able to browse and look at everything. Of course, nothing's in there, I just made that project. But you see this check out. Now when you check out, it'll ask you where you want to check it out. And this will be on your local computer, save as group project. Alright, let's just check it out. And that will download everything in the repository, and it will check it out. Now for demonstration purposes, I opened up a program called Text Edit that comes built in with the Mac. It's just like Notepad on Windows. Now I'm going to make a simple text file, and it's just going to say this is a test. Then I'm going to go to File and then Save. And I'm going to save it, not in my iCloud. I'm going to save it in my documents. And I'm going to save it in the group project trunk. Now I'll discuss what the branches, tags, and trunk mean, because every developer and everybody uses them differently. So I'll discuss what I use them for. Test doc. Click save. Now, depending on if you have a graphical user interface Subversion Client, or if you just have a Explorer Shell edition, which is the client I use, things might be a little bit different from this point on, but you should be able to get around it, and I will talk about the Windows side in a few minutes. So, regarding versions, if you look at the right side, I can show all or changed. Now, if I click the changed, it will show me everything that was changed on my computer. The question mark says it is not in the repository, but it's on my computer. What do I want to do with it? I can right-click it, I can add it, delete it, or ignore it, or rename, and all this stuff. So I want to add it to the repository. Now, let's say you're done working for the day, or I usually do this like every hour or two. I right-click the parent, the main parent of the project, not the trunk, but the actual parent of the entire project. And then I choose commit. Now, when you commit, you can write a message or not. It's completely up to you. I try to keep in informative messages, but if I'm in a rush, I usually say uploaded a doc or something like that. So it'll transmit that file, it'll commit it, and then if I go back and look at the group project again, as you see, there's a second revision. It has my comment, uploaded a doc, by me less than a minute ago, and what was added was trunk/text doc. And if you click that, you can see what has changed. Now, like I said, if you can easily read it in a simple text editor and website, you can kind of see what has changed and what has not. But this is kind of a little weird looking file, and this is my string here. So now let's go ahead and go back to the activity, and let's go back to text edit, and let's go to file, open recent, test doc. This is a test. Changed, and then let's save it again. Now let's go back to versions. Now it says there's a little pencil icon here. That means that it is in the repository. It's just been modified on my local machine. So I can go back up here and I can commit. There's nothing I need to do. It's already added. I don't need to say we modified it. So I can just commit it. And it will tell us what we're doing. We're committing this modified version of this document. Modified a doc. Commit. So I committed a modification to that document. Now if I go back and go back to the activity, we're now at revision 3 for modified a doc. And then that gives you a little icon with a pencil again. And I can click this. Now this does not give what has changed and what has been deleted, because it's a little weird looking document. But if I go back and let's look at the tower defense. So when I add a file, you can see what it looks like. Now if I click here to change revision, I can change revision here. Or I can difference 8 to let's say 25. It'll tell me what has been deleted and what has been added. So I deleted the public class monster because I changed that line to have a derivative of gameplay object. And of course the minus means it was deleted and the plus means it was added. So you can see the advantage of finding out what has changed between revision 8 and 28. Okay, so enough about that. Let's talk a little bit about the branches, tags, and trunk. Now, as I said again, every developer and every project manager or everybody uses these differently. But I think the basic way of dealing with this, and the way I do, is trunk is the version you're working on, the latest, where all of your development work goes into. A tag is when you have like beta 1, beta 2, beta 3. Those will be tags. All three of those will be tags. You can make them as a folder or zip, or it's completely up to you. There can be a beta 1 folder or zip, beta 2 folder or zip, and all that stuff. A branch is, let's say I'm building let's take my tower defense engine. I built it for a specific purpose to have it easily expandable. Now, if somebody wants to approach me and say, I like your tower defense engine, can you kind of do something just for us in the engine that will benefit just our company or my version of the game? I'm building it in such a way that it will be unique. So only I want to benefit for these changes. Like connecting to a database or something like that. That would be a branch. I'm taking my version of the tower defense engine and modifying it for a specific client or a specific purpose. So that is what I use the trunk, tags, and branches for. The trunk is where the main development will go into. That's where all of your modifying and work goes into. When you're ready to set up a alpha, beta, version 1, version 2, whatever, you will zip that up or just copy it and paste it in the tags, and that will be that. Okay, so they used to recommend versions, but now they're recommending Cornerstone, and this is for the Mac. So if you're looking for a client for the Mac, versions is very good. I've used it in the past, and I will always use it probably. I don't want to spend money to try out this new program when it will probably do the same thing. But it's up to you. You can try it. And versions has a trial too, so it looks similar in some ways, and it looks pretty good, but I'm not going to spend, I think it's $50. Single user license, $60. So I'm not going to spend $60 to try this out when I already have versions. And versions is, I think it was $50 as well. Okay, so let's talk about the Windows side. So, interestingly enough, the best client I've found on the Windows side is not a client that provides a graphical user interface. Instead, it extends the right-click menu, the Explorer shell, and it's called Tortoise Svn. And now let me do a quick demonstration on how to use that. So, you have that URL that I'll mention in the developers forum later this weekend, and you'll copy this URL, and then you will open up a folder that you want to include it in. I've created a folder called SVN test, and then you right click and select SVN checkout, and then it will ask the URL for the repository, that URL that you see here, the checkout directory, where you want it to be on your computer. The depth, the fully recursive, will mean everything in the entire repository. And then there's a few additional options there. You can omit externals and just check out a specific revision if you want to. And it can show the log. You can click show the log, and it will tell you all the changes that I've made. I added a new document, I modified the document, and I created the initial repository structure. And it tells you what's changed down there below. And then the comment up here. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK and check this out. And then once it's done, I'll click OK. It says the amount of data transferred in, the amount of minutes and seconds, and what was added, modified, and deleted. And now it gives us those 3 folders, and it gives us a green check mark. So if I open this, changed in Windows, and then I save it again. So I edited this document. It becomes a red exclamation point. That means that it's modified. And then I go up to the parent. That means that's modified. And if I go past that, it tells us the whole SVN test has been modified. So I like to go to the parent of the trunk tags and branches. I like to go up to that level, right-click that folder. You can tell if it's supported by the check mark or whatever indication this has. And then I can choose SVN update or commit. So I do commit, and then I changed in Windows. Then I click OK, and then it will submit that change. Now I have a green check mark when everything's up to date. Now, it's a good idea whenever you want to work on the project, it's a good idea to right-click and do update. Just to be 100% sure, even though that nothing's changed, I just always like to do update right before I do any work. And then I'll commit like every hour, just so like the power doesn't go out and I lose everything, or my hard drive crashes, or something like that. I save all my work and then I commit like every hour or so if I'm working on something. Alright, so this has been an SVN guide, Subversion guide. I hope you learned something, and if you're welcome to get to work on this once you have a account, and you're welcome to start working on the project whenever we decide what we're doing. Now, I will submit the Visual Studio solution and the project once we decide what we're doing. So if you want to wait until then, until there's a Visual Studio project you can work on, if you want to wait until then, you can. Once we decide if it's going to be like a side-scroller or zombie game or something like that. Once we decide a little bit more internally for the people that I've chosen, once we decide what we're doing, I'll create the solution. And then I'll also delete this test doc. Okay, now if you want to use a Subversion for yourself, for your own projects, I highly recommend Beanstalkapp. They provide a great service. I've been with them for about 2 years, and they've been incredible. I could not be happier with any Subversion client that they give you. They do offer a free version, 1 user and 1 repository, 1 project only. I have 11 repositories, so I have the silver plan, and that is $25 a month. So I hope to see you next time. We'll probably do a tower defense tutorial in the next video. I just wanted to get this video recorded and out there. So I hope you learned something. I hope you find working with Subversion useful. It is a very, very useful technology that has been used in the past for all the developers, and we used it. I first saw this website in my college project, and it saved us a lot of time with sending emails back and forth. Hey, I updated this project, here's the latest version. I'll zip it up and send it to you in an email. It just saves us a whole lot of time and effort doing that. So anyway, next video will be a tutorial, and I hope to see you next time. Thanks for watching.